Welcome and good evening to the October 9th Traffic and Pedestrian Safety Committee meeting. I'd like to ask if we can go ahead and proceed. Let's go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. We'll go ahead and begin with roll call. Chair Faith Dunham Sims. And Member Crystal. And we have Ben Doyle, who is not present today, and presiding over the meeting will be myself, KJ, and we do have Mia here as well. Slide, please. Approval of minutes for September 11th, 2024. We'll
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes if there's no discussion.
Member Crystal Pasco. Sorry.
Oh, sure. I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go ahead and do the roll call for the approval of minutes. Crystal Pasco.
Yes.
Kent.
Approve.
And Faith Dunham Sims.
Approve.
Thank you. Should be item 4. Committee for reports and communication. Does a new report to present?
Just wanted to wish everyone a happy National Pedestrian Safety Month, which is October. Also wanted to recognize International Walk and Roll to School Day that schools in the world celebrate this month. I also wanted to remind everyone of great transportation-related resources that 511 Contra Costa offers, including Halloween safety tips for our pedestrians. And with that, I just wanted to wish everyone a safe and happy Halloween.
Thank you. And then does the committee have any requests for any future agenda items? Next slide, please. After this one. So next slide is citizens to be heard. These are for items not on the agenda. And if you are calling, please leave your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have any callers?
Yes, we have one caller from a 510 area code number. Again, please introduce yourself record and minutes.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, my name is Anthony Washspring, longtime senior citizen, resident of Pinole Valley. I want to ask a couple of questions that are unrelated to each other, but one is on the Caltrans situation. You know, I've noticed that we had some reported to Public Works, Mr. Mishra, directly and indirectly through different people and different meetings over the last 3 or 4 months about that major light outage, not only up and down Pinole Valley Road, but San Pablo Avenue, and then the other one separately with the overpassing tunnel bridge lights, which are Caltrans going eastbound and westbound on I-80, the big green sign there that says I-80 Sacramento Hercules, go on the on-ramp past Jack in the Box, or the other one by the bowling alley. When you look up at I-80 overpass sign says I-80 west or east going to Oakland. Those lights have been out for a long time. And I don't think as a taxpayer, we should be told by the Public Works Department, Mr. Stanjay Mishra or his assistant there, now it's the city's community's responsibility to decipher what is expense, what isn't, number one, to assign public community total responsibility of having to call into Caltrans and make multiple calls and follow-ups with them. That should be an in-house departmental job. Even if you have to use one of the city council interns or somebody to pick up a phone or write a letter to Caltrans on what our needs are in our city, including things like clean up littering on one side of the freeway that is being maintained, Mechanics Bank, Jack in the Box, Trader Joe's exit off-ramp or on-ramp on that side of the freeway. On the west side of the freeway, it doesn't seem like it's being treated the same way by the dialysis center, other side, and the on-ramp over there by the bowling alley. Like they always seem to play catch-up or never get to it with the weeds and the rubbish there. And then also I wanted to ask, can prioritize a public health and safety program with the police department and public works for refurbishing and replacing some of the signages on the streets, because we have severe problems going speeding and traffic violations and running red lights and mainly speeding up and down Pinole Valley Road, the major corridors, Fitzgerald Drive and Appian. And we need to step up to the plate and do things like that and add signages.
For your comments. Next slide, please. We do have a special presentation today regarding Pinole election and Measure I. Today we do have the Director of Finance, Guillory, here today to present on this topic.
Good evening, everyone. I am here on behalf of City Manager Kelsey Young, and I am the city's finance director for those who I haven't met. I'm just going to provide a brief presentation on Pinole's municipal election and the sales tax measure that will be on the ballot this November, which is titled Measure I. Next slide. So in conducting its annual strategic long-term financial plan, the city put together its 20-year financial forecast. That forecast revealed is that the city is facing a $1.6 million deficit in the 2025-26. To that, the City Council considered a number of revenue enhancement options, and one of the options that rose to during those discussions was a potential sales tax measure, and ultimately the City Council voted to put a 50-cent sales tax measure on the ballot for the November 2024 election. One thing to point out is if is not able to generate additional revenue, it will face a structural budget deficit, and it would have no choice but to make some cuts in city essential services, including public safety and road maintenance and repair. Next slide. So back in the spring of 2024, the city did engage a consulting firm to assist with outreach and polling on the community's list of priorities that it would like to see the city address with the additional funding. And we learned through that survey that the community had a number of items that were high priorities, and most of those were related to public safety and also to streets and roads. And this also helped to inform the same basic services to the Pinole community. Next slide. So amongst the various priorities that were identified by Pinole, these were the top 6, which includes providing clean water, maintaining 911 emergency response times, keeping public areas and parks clean, funds local, maintaining fire protection, and also maintaining crime prevention programs. Next slide. So again, just those areas related to safety, this is a high priority in most communities, is to keep the community safe and just maintain police to crime prevention and to maintain response time. Next slide. So another high priority area, maintain and repair roads. And according to a recent engineers report, Pinole has at a minimum a $32 million backlog in road and infrastructure repairs. And that we go without repairing, the more expensive it will become economically to repair the streets and roads. Next slide. So what is Measure I? This is the half sales tax measure that will be on the ballot. It is a general tax, which means that the funds generated would be used for general municipal purposes, including public safety. After receiving feedback from hundreds of residents who responded to the survey, the City Council did vote unanimously to place this measure on the ballot. If it is by the voters, it would generate an additional $2.5 million. And those funds will remain at the local level, so they cannot be taken by the state, since it would be a local sales tax. It would also help improve the city's long-term fiscal sustainability. And while it will that we have in the streets, and we can leverage other financing mechanisms to start to address some of those obligations. And then lastly, all funds generated by Measure I will be on maintaining services. Next slide. So this is just a just to show you what the question like. So it'll include the same language that I just mentioned on what the funds will be directed towards. And as I also mentioned, we expect to rate about $2.5 million annually. It will be subject to the audits that we conduct on all of the city's finances, and will include spending disclosure that will be available to the public to review, and often will be spent for Pinole services. Next. So again, as this is a local tax, it'll remain within the city and will be subject to the same accounting and fiscal year and audit provisions as the other city finances. Next slide. So in addition to Measure I on Pinole's municipal ballot, there are other items that are there for voters to consider. Pinole voters can select and 2 at-large city council. Does encourage all voters to make informed decisions on state propositions, state candidates. Other information on voting, we have the website there, which is registertovote.ca.gov. There's also additional information regarding voting and on Measure I specifically on the city's website at www.pinole.gov. Special web page set up with more information. Next slide. And that concludes, and we just like to for attending and engaging in this year's election. And I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
With the half-cent increase, what will that bring Pinole sales tax to? Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about how the funding that's generated annually will go specifically to streets and roads? Is it
During the budget development process. Thank you.
thanks?
Thank you. And we'll continue with item number 7, traffic and pedestrian safety issues. Next slide, please. Just want to note that our traffic calming policy can be found on our city website for a detailed explanation on the steps taken to address any issues that are submitted by the public. So please feel free to visit our city website to view those traffic calming policies. Next slide, please.
Can I say something about the traffic calming policy?
Yes.
I think traffic calming is something that's we should always be talking about. It seems to be kind of the number one concerns that are brought here. I mean, just during Citizens to be Heard, Anthony was finishing it by talking about speeding on different streets and how to address that. And I was looking at the traffic calming policy today on the city website, and it's more than just that. There's a link on the website to an older PDF that I found really useful. It talks about what we've talked about here before, the steps involved for a person from the community, how to get something from an initial idea to being implemented. It had a petition that a person could use to get signatures from neighbors. And also what it had that I thought was really good was a list of all sorts of different traffic calming road changes that could be implemented. And most you're not going to see here in Pinole, but it was really good just to see kind of not an exhaustive list, but a really good complete list. And I think I was looking at it specifically because, I don't know if we're going to get to it, but there was a letter sent to the city about how neighbors could get speed bumps. And so I was interested to see what it had to say about speed bumps, and it was helpful. It made a clear distinction between speed bumps and speed humps. A bump meaning a bump meaning more of an aggressive, tall, high aspect ratio bump that you almost have to stop for, like in a parking lot, and a hump being more of a flattened, lower hump that you have to slow down for. It didn't mention lumps, so there are bumps and humps and lumps. I think there's a lot to be said for the lumps, which are oftentimes the way you see them. It'll be a recycled rubber, like a mat almost, and they usually have bright markings on them, so they're very visible. Oftentimes our bumps and lumps and things that are just made out of asphalt, they kind of look like the rest of the road because the paint wears off, but these recycled rubber mats are very visible. They can be removed if you're doing street maintenance, and I know you've all seen this. Where the lumps, they don't go across the road continuously, there's a gap, and so a wide-wheeled vehicle like a fire truck couldn't go over it and not be slowed down at all. That's a real disadvantage of bumps and humps. Whereas a car, we've probably all done it, where we don't want to get slowed down too much, so one wheel goes between them and one wheel kind of goes over the lump. But I didn't want to go on too long about that, but I just wanted to say I think it's a really useful document, and I would encourage people, even though it's, to look in that and find something that they think could be a good solution for their neighborhood. And I realize that we're not all traffic engineers, and we might find something that's really inappropriate, or maybe not inappropriate, but just wouldn't be a good fit for some reason we're not aware of. But I still think it's a good idea to be an advocate and identify something and get signatures from your neighbors, and that will start some momentum to achieve something that might end up maybe in some modified form in a future CIP. So, capital improvement project. So, just some thoughts on traffic calming, because I feel like we always bring it up and we're able to do so little. Most of the concerns are just concerns vented about fast traffic, and the answer is always enforcement or education. And there are things, engineering things that could be done that are effective, that just kind of take a long time to actually get implemented. But if somebody is willing to advocate for them over the long haul, we could see some changes.
I'd like to comment on that, Kent. So as far as the traffic calming policy, so there's steps that are in place for us to follow, like the speed humps or speed bumps or what you call the speed lumps in those cases. Those are all things that we do look at. We do have to figure, gives us a good starting point to start implementing some of these practices. And I was going to touch on that for Calusa Street. So that we have you have a broader picture of how we can start implementing some of these policies. So hopefully moving forward, with these programs that the city is acquiring, that we're able to start really focusing on these streets. And I do also want to note that yes, we do start with law enforcement. It's the least costly of the options. Right, because of the time to install and the maintenance and getting those structures for the neighborhoods. So we want to start, very low cost, and then eventually, if that doesn't help in that situation, and then at the TAPS committee's recommendation, to bring it up to council to, install some of these structures. Okay.
I appreciate that. And things often happen that way, but sometimes things just don't get done because staff has too much to do. And so I find sometimes, in some instances, in my own personal experience, it works for a member. I've done it myself, Sharrows on Pinole Valley Road. Pick something specific and pick a specific solution and start advocating for it, and it might be wrong, but at least you're asking for something specific, not just a general concern. You're saying, I think this is a specific solution. It might be wrong, but it gives staff and TAPS and everybody something to respond to. So I'm kind of a big advocate for us residents of the city, especially in gathering other residents, neighbors, and asking for something specific and pushing for it. And it might not be the right solution, but at least it gets a response. No.
We have a caller. Again, introduce yourself for the record, and please keep comments to 3 minutes. Hello, caller?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes, I'd like to follow up with the traffic safety calming question and subject that Mr. Moriarty brought up. And I think, you know, they should give more credence for him and hopefully other commissioners that have to echo the public sentiment, if not create their own, and confront the Public Works Department and the head of the police department. We don't have a new police chief, but we're paying big bucks to both of those department heads right now, whether they're interim or not, as well as some of their assistant directors and managers, to start doing more rather than just put things down out verbally or on print. Case in point, with regard to traffic calming, and I was rudely cut off, but it was related to that at 2 minutes because the finance department had to push Measure 1 down our throats again for the upkeep time, but they never came through with any plans. It sounds like Donald Trump's people talking about, oh, we have something planned in action, but we don't see anything new, no implementation for calming traffic with a plan, a speed reduction plan on Fitzgerald Drive or Appian Way and Pinole Valley Road and Tennant Avenue and San Pablo Avenue, you know, and we don't get the numbers accurately. We should have quarterly reports from the police department with an in-house presentation there to the general public. So we know where our tax dollars going and what they're doing to improve traffic calming. Case in point, if you go back in the police blotter several years, you'll see more citations given in about 10 to 15 to 20 years ago, whether it was on one blotter or another police report versus what we're giving today. It seems ever since COVID hit, they have less traffic stops, and then the ones that they do make, they give out a lot more warnings and they release people with warnings versus citations, you know, whether it's speeding, this or that. So we need to have more consequences. Pinole already has a reputation versus Hercules of being, you know, second string with regards to issuing citations and tickets, and the city needs more income. So what better way to do that, to kill two birds with one stone and work on consequential citations with these perpetrators that are speeding up and down our corridors, number one. And if you want to take lessons with speed
You have
bumps,
10
go down
seconds
to
remaining.
Albany, El Cerrito, and Berkeley, and you can see the number of different programs and speed bumps that they have in there, as well as talk to their police department, you know. But to close off the public comment and to people with ideas like that without taking them seriously.
Next slide, please. So we did have one that was submitted online regarding a speed bump installation at 2467 Calusa Street. We did actually, it says that we're currently in policy step 1. We're actually between 2 and 3. We have reviewed the site and have found that the average speed on this road for the entire stretch of this roadway between Estates to Larena is high. So we are going to look further into contacting this resident in obtaining a survey or a petition to install these speed lumps. Okay, so with this new program, as I mentioned before, we are able now to look at everything holistically, and it also provides us data of the times people tend to overspeed on the roadways. So this is going to be one case where we'll reach out to the resident and see if they can get a petition started to allow a installation of any structure or a recommendation from the public of a structure that they want in that location. And the reason for this petition, especially for speed bumps, humps, lumps, rumble strips, bots, dots, is just the amount of noise that it creates when you do put in these structures around somebody's home. Okay, so that's why we want to be sure whether we install this structure or come up with another idea to slow down traffic in this area, that the residents in this particular region are aware of what potentially would happen with noise on the street. Okay. Next slide, please.
I just had a comment. That's really interesting, that anonymous cell phone data as far as speeds. And I was wondering, how long has it been around? And do you have like a heat map for the whole city so you could see what the speeds are? How is it presented? And is it something that is available to the public? Is it something the city pays for?
Yeah, so those are all great questions. So it is a program that Contra Costa County pays for. We pay our share for the program. I just want to note that this is not a licensed, engineered traffic study. So then there is a difference between this anonymous data and a traffic survey that's done. Okay, with this data, it is anonymous, but there are some boundaries that we have to set in place when we do have this, because when we look up a roadway, we can only search it per segment, and it just gives us a rough estimate of how fast vehicles are moving or traveling from a certain roadway.
So that's something the county only makes available to the cities that pay their share?
Correct. Yes. So it's not publicly available.
And does this take the place of putting the stealth box out?
No, it does not.
So then are you using it in conjunction? I mean, does using this program, is it better than putting the stealth box out and collecting data that way? I'm just curious.
I don't have an answer for that, whether which one is better, but typically with your stealth boxes, you'll see that with an engineered license survey, a traffic survey, not so much with this anonymous cell phone data.
And then my next question would be, is it defensible if it's not like licensed by a traffic engineer? It's not a formal study. If there's someone unhappy that we're going to move forward to put traffic calming measures in place based on a study like this, is it defensible?
So as far as implementing, from my understanding, implementing traffic calming policies, we cannot make major changes to roadways. So for instance, we cannot use this data to completely repave and redesign a roadway like Pinole Valley Road. You would need a engineered traffic survey to do that, but we can put, traffic calming policies that are dictated in the traffic calming policy, whether it's a traffic circle, maybe we can put in temporary traffic roundabouts to see how that works. And with this program, you're able to get an idea of how traffic changes when you put in those structures. And yeah, Kent mentioned that they do have those rubberized speed lumps. Those are great tools because if, it doesn't work, they're removable. So it's not something that we would put permanently in place without consulting a licensed traffic engineer.
So you can do a kind of a quick build thing and maybe collect some data without going through. There are fewer steps involved in a quick build sort of thing that you can collect data from rather than a permanent installation.
Yes, so that it depends on the size of the project. If we're going to install, let's say at CMIS, for example, CMIS and Pinole Valley Road, if we wanted to experiment with a traffic circle, there's going to be a lot more planning involved with that to ensure that a traffic circle is viable to be installed. But as far as, the speed lumps, the rubberized speed lumps, those are temporary, and we can place that in place and then see what it does with traffic, see what it does with the speeds. Our law enforcement officers can see if anything has changed with the installation of that speed hump. I do want to note that even if you have the speed hump, it doesn't stop people from speeding. They'll just slow down at the speed hump and then speed on after. And that's why some of these suggestions might have to be revised. And so temporary solutions tend to be the best experiment in calming traffic.
I just wanted to echo Member Moriarty's comments around being proactive as residents in maybe identifying some potential solutions and working with the city in a collaborative way. I think even for myself as someone who works in the transportation industry, and I'm not a traffic engineer in any way, it's hard to know what those options are. Like, what are potential solutions? And I'm really interested in this resource that you mentioned, this PDF that's on the website. So I'll be looking at that after the meeting. But I just wanted to throw out some ideas around, educating residents on what some of those options might be. I think empowering and giving the information and increasing awareness about what potential solutions could be could help with also understanding expectations for when a project is brought to, to us or to staff, and how long it might actually take to implement it. And so I think in general, this type of awareness education could be really helpful for us as members who aren't engineers, but also for residents. So I'll follow up with staff on some ideas that are percolating in my brain.
Next slide, please. Oh, 7C. Okay. List of traffic issues discussed and the status. No new updates for 1 through 4 and 5 through 8. Next slide, please. No new updates for 9 through 12. Next slide, please. No new updates for 13 through 14. Next slide, please. Sorry, can you go back? There is one update. I apologize. For item number 14, I do want to let the committee know that our crews have installed a right turn only for number 14 on Appian Way at Terra Hills. So they did install that at the Public Works recommendation and reviewing the turns at that intersection. We have also restriped that turn lane, and we have also elongated the striping as well to accommodate more vehicles, making that right turn onto Terra Hills. And for additional safety, it was also our recommendation to install red zone due to the conflicts of the pileup on Appian through going towards the freeway. So that cars don't have to wait as long trying to make that right turn. So we did red zone that stretch of roadway, approximately 180 feet. Okay. So I will have photos of that project next month, so you can see what that redesign looks like. We'll have a side-by-side comparison of the Google view, and hopefully we can get an aerial view of what that difference looks like. Okay.
And can you remind us when that issue was brought to the committee or to staff?
I believe that was 2 months ago.
Wow. That's fast. Great.
So I do want to note, we're going through through all the traffic issues now that the staff have access to this program to see what ideas we can come up with to notify and educate drivers of speed limits, whether it's refresh striping. As you've probably noticed driving around, the city has been making an effort in restriping stop signs or stop markings, replacing stop signs, restriping double yellow lines as best as they can with the amount of staff that we currently have to do the work. So kudos to their efforts. Next slide, please. Issues related to Caltrans right-of-way. Right now, there are no new updates for 7D. Next slide, please. Item 8, staff updates. Next slide. Unfortunately, Officer Eubanks is not present today. She does have a training, and hopefully she'll be able to present at the next TAPS committee meeting. Next slide, please. CIP projects. At this time, there's no new items to report. Development projects, you can go ahead and go to the city website to review all current projects in planning and see what their statuses are. Right now, we do have one which is 830 to 848 San Pablo Avenue for the Pinole Shores 2 Phase 2 redesign. Next slide, please. Item 8D, active transportation plan. We do still have the website up for residents to view the comments and suggestions for the ATP's recommendations. And I do want to let the committee know we are still waiting on the final draft of the report. Once we do get that draft, we'll provide that to the committee for review and for any comments that you may have on that rough draft. Okay. Next slide, please. Grants update. We are still waiting to hear back from Contra Costa County for the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program for the Pinole Valley Road project. As many of you know, the Pinole Valley Road project is a road rehab as well as restriping for bicyclists and enhanced visibility for pedestrians that may be crossing to and from school or to and from the Pinole Valley Park. Okay. Next slide, please. Item 9, contacts for TAPS. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to any of your committee contacts listed here in the slide, or reach out to our Public Works Maintenance and submit a service request for any outstanding issues that you may have seen in the out in public, whether it's faded signs, restriping. Our staff are doing their best to address all of these needs around the city. Okay. Do we have any questions or comments? No.
We have one public comment from caller with area code 510. Again, please leave all comments for 3 minutes. You may
Hello,
begin.
can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah, I would like to just comment on the last commenter, or I guess he's the assistant director to Mr. Mishra for Public Works. You know, in the past we had considerably better graphics and presentations with bolder out printing, but you know, for the general public, if we're not in the chambers and if we're not online per se, but we're looking at the Pinole television Zoom set, aside from the major categories you reviewed with the bold topics in blue, everything else is all blurted out. It's blurry. The font is and color is off kilter, and it's basically illegible to the general public eye. And when you just skip over things to get through the meeting, I guess, you talk about different items, we can't follow you. You know, all you're doing is giving us statements of numbers that have been addressed or not addressed by Public Works or the TAPS committee, and that would lead to the other related question of that it seems that you have to write a formal request, a formal letter to a certain website online to get any kind of action or recognition by your department and TAPS. You know, so you treat other general public who maybe don't have total access to a computer or don't like doing certain things, but they want to come in the chambers and or use the Zoom as a live participant for their commenting, but they get treated differently, you know, and I don't think that's a good Robert's Rules of Order for Business as well as the Ralph Brown Act. When people get treated differently because you're telling them to do this way versus that way, and for some reason maybe a lot of senior citizens and other people can't keep up with it, and you can't even read it on the television screen. Also, the signaling on Pinole Valley Road queuing, was that addressed? I don't think so. How often do you re-queue the signals throughout the city, not just Pinole Valley Road, so people don't have to have stop, go, and pedal to the metal because they got stuck at one red light after the other red light, not to mention all the carbon emissions that they're putting out by doing that, you know, as well as eliminating 2, if not 3 of those signal lights late at night after 8 o'clock to maybe 4 in the morning and put them on a yellow-red blinker flash as well. Was that ever done?
You have
No
10
one
seconds
answered or called us
remaining.
back on that item. And then what about all the no parking signs up and down Pinole Valley Road, like almost 24? Who requested or mandated and authorized that to our budget?
KJ, the agenda is posted on the website, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So folks who are watching at home, they can pull up a copy of the agenda on their computers or phones,
That is correct,
That
as
if-
well as the slides.
as well as the slides. So if they were having difficulty, and I could see where it might be small and blurry, but they could then follow along online or even print it out for themselves,
That is correct.
right, if you're having difficulty seeing it.
They are also posted outside of our city building. So they do have public access to the agenda or to the slides, and they can always request through email for us to send them a copy if they don't have access to our website.
One thing, since we're talking about it, we were watching on my phone the TV broadcast of this meeting right now. One thing I noticed is that there's like a 20-second delay, which probably a difficult thing to fix. But a person could assume live here, the 3 minutes has ended. But if you're looking at it on the TV, it looks like you still have 20 seconds. So a person could be confused and feel like they were cut off prematurely when actually they got their full 3 minutes. So that's my little bit of experience of watching this meeting on the TV.
Item 10, please. Chair Faith Dunham Sims, would you like to adjourn the meeting?
Yes, we will adjourn until next month, November 13th at 6 p.m. Thank you, everyone.